Stava a succedere no bordello.
All right, what's going on, folks? Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another episode of the Bordello. I'm joined by a guest. I'm very excited to have Alfredo Marabese on the pod. Your alias is AzzurriTV. People will have probably seen you before. I feel like you and I kind of know each other. We were talking off pod just a second ago. It feels like we're kind of already quite familiar. I mean, I'm following you for maybe like a year. We know each other's content pretty intimately. We know each other's cadence, voice, tendencies. The only thing that's ever lacked is an actual, voice conversation. I was hoping we could do this in person at some point, but I don't know when I'll be in London next or first for the first time. I was hoping I would go at some point soon and just never materialized. And I said, that's it, enough. I don't want to wait any longer. I want to get this kid on. I want to have a hang with him. So welcome on the show, buddy. I appreciate you coming on and joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's long overdue, very, very long overdue. Like you said, I feel I've known you for a very long time.
Despite it feels overdue. Yeah, despite having never met, it'll be a fun hang. So obviously this is virtual, which is kind of shitty. I don't love the virtual Zoom type pod, but in your case, I thought I'd make an exception. I don't love it because we wind up kind of like tripping over each other and interrupting with a bit of a lag sometimes. Sorry in advance if that happens, but I think it'll be worth it. I think this will be a really good hang. I'm happy you're here. Before we get into it, if you're new to the show, please give it a like, give it a rating on Apple. A few of you guys have been lately, and that helps boost us in the rankings. So do that, like the pod, subscribe if you're new. I think we're pretty much capped out on like people who will subscribe, who are just stumbling upon this episode. I think we're going to need a real boom or something if we're going to, I'm hitting the plateau. It's a real niche that we're operating in here. I'm not talking about 2006 and the World Cup all the time, the shit that gets likes. We were talking, Fredo, about how I once a few months ago said that the Agnelli family should throw Allegri over a cliff in the mountains above Turin. That's not the sort of thing it's a very niche joke that you have to kind of be in the know to get. And it's a little bit off the beaten path of what people are used to. I think we might have capped out. But having said that, if you happen to be new, please subscribe. All right. I think that's all I'm supposed to do. I've done my due diligence. Let's talk about all the shit that you can't say now that you have a new exciting job that requires you to be professional. What's the craziest you'd go now? You were talking about how you have freedom of speech, so you could still critique Allegri. We won't get into details, but there's like a thing now impeding you from really like going nuts and saying, let's kill Allegri, let's throw him over the mountain ledge.
Yeah, I guess, could you call it a conflict of interest, perhaps? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure we're that closely related. But, maybe not go as far as, like, my good friend Luca, who gets a cricket bat to Allegri's face and, starts beating him to the ground. Or, just remaining kind of as impartial and, as I try to be.
Is your goal to be a journalist? I know that's not what you do. I know you do content creation and you work independently, so it's a little bit different. But do you have any interest in actually like chronicling a tournament? What do you want to do with this? Because you have an interesting page. You have a cool page that kind of follows Italian football. It's not only Azzurri that you follow. They're a mainstay of in terms of like topics of conversation. They're a mainstay. You always talk about them. You always will, I feel like, but you talk about Italian football broadly. Is your goal to like cover the sport, or do you just kind of want to keep operating independently? Where do you see it going?
Yeah. It kind of depends what you kind of refer to journalism as, if it's like traditional form journalism, which is, it's all writing, which I've never been like tremendously interested in. I don't really have the attention span, and I've just never translated my thoughts well from my mind to a pen on paper, whereas I've always been quite comfortable speaking in front of crowds, presenting and talking about the stuff that I talk about on my page, just with my dad or my nonna or my brother or whoever it may be. So it was kind of a bit of a natural progression. And, if opportunities were to arise in a more professional setting, where I could talk about football on camera, more presenter type role, I think I'd probably veer towards
I
that
could see you
side
as
as
a
opposed to
presenter.
a traditional form of journalism.
I could see you as a presenter for sure.
Yeah, well, hopefully one day. Maybe I'll be on BT Sport. But there's not a massive market here in England. There's not a massive market, not like in America where they have Marco and them guys on Golasso, or what's it called?
Yeah, CBS. Yeah, it's one
Yes, yeah.
channel. It's one channel that has the rights. That's about it. I mean, there's no coverage of Serie A specifically in the UK, right? Is there?
There
Sure,
is.
someone has
It's
the
on
rights to it, but it's
TNT Sports, but there's never a studio or people talking about it. It's just straight into the match with two commentators who are the same commentators who will be on every kind of English speaking broadcast of that game around the world.
Yeah, people have told me that I should go into broadcasting, and I just don't think that anyone has the stomach to hire me. I just don't. I think the problem is you kind of have to be very vanilla, very boring. I don't know. Even the funny guys are kind of, I don't know. The guys who are considered edgy or the funny guys are kind of just, you know, they're throwing softball ideas out that are a little bit, you know, against the grain. But I guess they just have a different, like, they almost have a different way of communicating, and that kind of sets them apart as opposed to the very robotic, you know, yeah, you know, I reckon, you know, this substitution should be made. The funny guy will just talk a little differently than that guy, and that's considered, you know, to be disruptive. I don't think there's anyone really in the traditional space that's hiring me for anything. So I don't know. I'm kind of just ripping it in silence, kind of ripping it into the abyss. I feel like, you know, for no one. It is frustrating because I think it's more unique than what is available to a lot of people. I just feel like I don't know how to get it, you know, out there, and I don't feel like someone's gonna say him. Yeah, I'll take a risk on him. He says, well, we should kill the coach. Like, you know, what should Juve do with Allegri? You should bring him up to the mountain and throw him off. Like just that's the thing with sport commentary also, is that it requires you to take it all so seriously and talk about it like it's such a serious matter. What do you think? Here's a burning question. What should they do with Nagelsmann? Who for you is the best player in the world? Mike in the face. It's like, what, you know? It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's
Talk about
why
that, it's serious.
I think that's why the Kate Abdo, the Michael Richards, Jamie Carragher, and Thierry Henry thing's done really well, because they kind of just take the piss. They get in the studio and they kind of just take the piss. I mean, it's not like, it's nothing against the grain per se, but it's different to, you know, four old white guys in a studio talking about something so serious that can make you fall asleep. At least they've got a bit of charisma and a bit of character.
At least they have banter. They have really good banter.
Yeah,
and it's fun to watch because it doesn't have, that's true. It doesn't have to be a controversial. People don't watch Champions League coverage to hear some guy make off-color jokes at halftime. You know, that's the thing. That's, now that I'm hearing it and talking it out loud, you know, or saying it out loud, talking it out, I'm realizing how crazy it is. I'm never going to get hired doing what I do because there's no desire for it. People don't want to hear, you know, people don't want to hear you talk about Israel at halftime. People don't want to hear you weave in like some like politics and stuff into football. It's just not what they want, and it's what I'll always do. So I think it'll never happen. You just have to be, just sound like a normal guy. Like when you watch Carragher and Henry and Abdo and Richards on, at the desk of the Champions League coverage, it feels like a regular hang. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be controversial, I guess, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think here's the thing. So with in your case, you only talk about football, but you're not really you're not really one of these guys that I can tell that you're a guy who's fun to talk to and hang out with and go have a bite with. But it's like when you're talking about football on your channel, you're kind of like you're in a little bit of a box, and it's like you got to talk about it seriously. Have you ever considered like shifting tones a little bit and being a little more I don't know, being a little more unhinged like you might be with friends?
Yeah, no, I have. It's a conversation I have, like, especially with my close friends who know me very well, and they're like, "Oh yeah," not that I'm different on there, but like not as jovial or just like
It's a different tone. You get
the
on and
tone.
you got to captivate attention right away. Stadium
Exactly,
news today. No one talk, right?
exactly.
That's the thing that I have a hard time with. I cannot just turn it on, and I'm capable of acting and doing that, but in good conscience, I can't do that. Because I feel weird doing it. I actually think it's an important thing that should be done. It's the mark of a good, content guy. But I don't really have it in me to
Yeah,
do it that often. Sometimes I'll force myself to in or out for the Azzurri. Let's go. But
yeah,
I can't. It just
it's
feels
hard.
off. You
Yeah,
know,
no, it
a
took me
lot
a
of the
while.
yeah, yeah. I have a conversation every pod. I don't just it's not just it's long form. So all the short form stuff I'm taking is from a long form pod, and I'm trying to splice it down, and it's strange for that reason. I don't know. You know what I would do if I were you? I would try to um see if I don't know if there's any real opportunity for this, but there should be for you, I think. You could do like traveling. You could do like travel vlogs and stuff within the context of, employment, or as a presenter, or as an analyst, or as a I don't know, as a talking head of sorts, but not necessarily sitting behind the desk, or not like necessarily asking like a manager interview questions after the match, but travel content. I could see you doing that. That would be interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've branched out and done a bit of that, and like, especially TikTok's fine because you can just pick up your phone, it's a few, and you can just talk over it. YouTube takes a bit more work, and it's that's what's hard though. Like I can sit in my room with my little ring light, no one around, and just talking to a camera. That's fine. When I'm outside the Allianz Stadium and there's 40,000 Juve fans walking around, and I've got to hold a camera up and talk to it around. That's when it starts getting a bit like, yeah, this is hard.
It's a
Just
different
like being
muscle.
being able to
Vlogging in
do that.
public. Vlogging in public is crazy. I've never done that. But if you have a team there to film you, it's a little different. Someone following you around is
Yeah,
probably a little more. I don't know. Makes you feel a little more comfortable. Almost, it looks like a serious operation. I'm saying if someone were to hire you to, I don't know, travel to a match or something, and like immerse yourself in the city, as you've done on YouTube. Like you have a few like cool vlogs that you've done. Basically, I think if somebody were to hire you and send you out on jobs, that could be fun. That's what I would do if I were you. I don't know how realistic. I don't know how many opportunities like that are currently out there, but it would be a thing that I think you should try to pursue if you somehow could. I don't know. It's also easy being in Europe too. You're relatively close to a lot of the action.
yeah. Well, I think we've spoken about this before, haven't we? When you were looking at coming over here, and I was explaining to you that I can get to Milan and back for about £30, which is in Canadian dollars. I'm not entirely sure how much, but not a lot of money anyway.
Yeah, it's like $50. Yeah, I mean it's very, very reasonable. So you have the proximity to it too. I would leverage that if I were you. But so are you in London proper? Where are you exactly in England?
So I'm about 40 minutes north of London.
What is the name of the town?
It's called Bedford.
Okay,
Bedford.
right. There are a lot of wops there, right? Are there
There
not?
is, yes. There
I've
is.
heard that there are a lot of Italians in Bedford. Yeah, what do you guys call them, wops, or do you call them wogs? Or
No,
do they call them? Do they just call them Italians?
no, dad does. Yeah, dad used to get called a wop. It was a wop. Yeah,
That term is dead. No one says that anymore, dude.
no one said it. I
No.
used to get. What did I get when I was younger? I used to get a bit of shit like spaghetti boy, or I don't know. I get called a diver a lot. Weirdly, a diver.
That was a big one. I used to get called a diver in
We got it
Quebec.
harder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. On the schoolyard. Yeah. On the schoolyard. Or on the pitch in the schoolyard all the time. It was hilarious. At summer camp, the Italians dive. Yeah, no, it was a really it was a really funny video, I think, from like 2004, 5, 6, around that period. One of the
Yeah.
first videos I saw on YouTube was the the Italian national team practicing for the World Cup. It
Yeah.
was the coach standing in the middle of a circle of players, jogging in place, and he goes, "Ready?" And he just drops dead to the ground, and all the players around him drop like a sack of potatoes. It was so good. Yeah, spaghetti never really offended me. Why would it? It's so preposterous a term. But my grandfather has talked about how when he moved to Canada, people used to call him that, and he still has a chip on his shoulder about it. And I'm like, why? Why?
It really.
It's hilarious. It's a hilarious thing to call someone. It's if someone's calling you a food that sounds that just sounds funny. The name spaghetti sounds funny. Any way you say it in Italian, it sounds like a stereotypical spaghetti. It sounds funny. It just does. It sounds like a thing that the Super Mario Bros would say, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a real insult. It's not a deep cut. You know, they're not really coming for the jugular. They're not going for like a real sensitive any sensitive subject matter. They're calling you a food. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. So I never understood the outrage around that. You know, we used to get called spaghetti. It's really funny to me when like Italian Americans do this a lot. I don't know if this goes on in the UK, but I find a lot of Italian Americans like talking about how hard they used to have it. And it's like, bro, like, it was a long time ago and it was really not that bad. Like ultimately, I don't think you ever really had the slurs weren't real slurs. A dago is not a real slur. It's just a random term to define a person from a general area. There's no historical context to it. You know, there's no, it's not a loaded term.
In the grand scheme of immigrants moving from one country to another, I think Italians probably had it okay in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, because eventually, because they don't. I mean, they don't look anywhere they move. They don't look that different from the people that are, I don't know, the largest segment of the population in that given place.
Yeah.
They can kind of fluidly integrate into society relatively seamlessly. They don't look different from most of the places that they've historically immigrated to than the people that do live there. And then I think there's just a level of charm that winds up winning people over time because the food is good and so on, and because I don't know, movies have been featuring Italian expats for as protagonists for like over 50 years now. It's kind of cool now. It's kind of cool. Nobody really skeeved by you bringing an Italian home anymore. 50 years ago, but now it's like, oh, good for you, girl. He's exotic.
Yeah, it was a bit easier before. It was a bit easier before the leading up to the European Championships, and then after that, that was when there was a bit of animosity once again. But that died down fairly quickly. Yeah.
I'm reading an older book from like the 1980s or maybe the early 90s. It's about 30 years old. It's over 30 years old. It's called Among the Thugs by Bill Buford. If you haven't read it, I'd encourage you to do so. It's just as a football fan, and also as an Englishman, a guy who lives in England, and what's interesting about it is it looks at the kind of behavior of English fans on the terraces in the 1980s, which was a notoriously bad period when Heysel happened and there was a European ban on all English fans, I think, for a number of years. And some American guy who's a journalist in London kind of accidentally got sucked into that world, and he just chronicles it. And it's really interesting to see how people spoke at the time. Like, wogs out, wogs out, wogs out. They would in the chants and stuff, and I feel like that came back in 2021 with the Euro. I would see videos of people congregating outside Wembley and saying unsavory things, and then there were those crazy those pasty UKIP guys who began kicking in a bunch of Italians in the concourse during or after the match. You remember that? That was a big thing. That was big for me. I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen any kind of like wog hatred among the Brits. I'd only ever really heard it espoused like in I don't know, in the past.
Yeah. I mean, it was, to be fair, even when I went to the semi-final, and I think there was a semi-final against Spain, and there was just like there was thousands of English fans there still, and there was just I just remember feeling the animosity, and it's not I'm not this is not tarnishing all English fans with that brush, because I know loads of England fans and they're all lovely, but there is that segment that during that tournament did behave like animals. We saw in the final. I mean, one of the strangest things to me is how England have got given another tournament in 2028 after acting like that in the final, having Wembley breached by thousands of people and being allocated another tournament. But yeah, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's the point, dude. That's the point of a podcast. It's a little longer form discussion. There's nothing wrong with speaking for more than a minute at a time. But I'm not that surprised that they got awarded a tournament. I mean, I don't think UEFA ultimately cares that much. It's not like a bomb went off and there was a security failure and there's a segment of radicalized England fans who are swearing to kill like all German fans who come. I mean, maybe privately they'll talk about how they'd love to beat up the Krauts, but I don't think there's not a huge segment of people publicly saying, if you come here, we'll kill you. It's not, I don't know. It's England. It's an easy sell. The Premier League is there.
The
infrastructure is there, but it's kind of like seen globally because of the Premier League being based out of there as being like the epicenter of global football.
Yeah,
they're always going to be a candidate to host a tournament. I wasn't that surprised. Unlike who? Italy.
Yeah.
Well, we got one with the Turks, which I don't understand.
Well, yeah, again, we got one again with an asterisk next to it. We'll have, I think, 4 or 5 stadiums.
How many stadiums do the Turks have? Is it their tournament with a few Italian games being hosted?
No, so there'll be 10 stadiums in total. They'll have 5. Italy will have 5.
Okay, so yeah, split with the Turks. That's if Turkey's still, I don't know, around in whatever 10 years. Jesus Christ, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's a little weird to do it with Turkey in particular. I think there's no cultural link with them. How do you want to spin zone it? It's the Roman and the Ottoman Empire hosting a tournament. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's not the Greeks. It's not Spain. Italy could realistically host with, I don't know. Italy and France could host. Italy and Spain could host. Italy and Greece could host. What? Sorry?
I think France would have made sense. I think France would have been a good one.
Would have made a great level of sense. Doing it with Turkey doesn't make a lot of sense. There's not a lot of cultural overlap with them, it's a Christian Mediterranean country with an Islamic one. Like, not that really ultimately like matters. You could have, for example, Serbia and Bosnia hosting a tournament. That's a Christian one with an Islamic one, but that doesn't feel as weird. Culturally, this doesn't feel as weird. It just feels like there's just a very big difference in terms of how people live in Greece. Sorry, in Turkey versus Italy compared to the other options. Again, I think Italy piggybacked on it because the Turks were hellbent on hosting a tournament. And, it's not like Azerbaijan or I don't know, Syria or Bulgaria, countries that are a little closer to culturally anyway, closer to Turkey might have, been able to do. I think Italy was the only one that was kind of
willing to piggyback on the back of it.
Considering it, I guess, but it's so classic of the type of behavior you'll see in Italian football. Now it's just a half measure. We'll only need to prop up a few stadiums. We won't need a full overhaul. Just a half measure. We'll have to half-ass it. We don't have to fucking go full throttle. I don't know. There's always an effort to undermine the process.
Yep.
Let's not go through the full process. We'll undermine it if we have to. What corners can we cut? There's always an effort to be sneaky in Italian bureaucracy. You know,
Yeah. I think
it was you.
and
It was
it
sorry.
doesn't make sense. It's
I'll take it. I'll take it. But again, it was you who flagged the Caserta Stadium to me a few months ago, which I'd
yeah,
heard about for a little while. I couldn't believe they actually went through with it. I saw it on your page. You were talking about how Casertana, a Serie D team, were erecting a stadium, and people were losing their minds. Like, wow, this
yeah.
is a big deal because it's unusual. It's unusual for any investment in one's own infrastructure to occur. It doesn't happen. You need a crazy incentive, like the fear of shame and mockery that'll occur if the stadiums aren't, propped up in time, and UEFA strips you of the hosting rights and gives it to Russia or something.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunately that's the only way that anything will change. Is I mean, like I said, we'll take it. Five stadiums is better than no stadiums, and it will mean that Milan will have to make a stadium. I don't know what will happen with the Olimpico. Napoli, that Napoli stadium cannot host a European Championship match. I'm sorry. I do love it and the cultural significance and the beauty behind that stadium, but as a modern stadium, it's so far from what it should be.
It's never getting a facelift because they named it after Maradona now, so it's a church now. It's like a
Yeah,
cathedral. It's like an old cathedral.
yeah,
I'm telling you, they will. That city will continue to pass legislation, or they will begin to pass legislation eventually that will begin to protect the cult, akin to how the Catholic Church is protected and their sites are protected. I'm convinced of it. In 200
yeah.
years, if the world is still around in 200 years, and Italy's still a country in 200 years, and the cult has exponentially grown that much more, like, I don't know. I always talk about the Maradona thing as being a cult, and people kind of I think I'm joking. People assume I'm joking. I'm not. I'm really
No.
not. Like it truly does have all the telltale. It's been 2 years since he died. 2. That's it. You imagine in 300? In 300, dude, there were Islamic fundamentalists 300 years after Muhammad lived. I'm telling you. If there was no internet, there would be a real faith of Maradona in 200 years. I could say that unequivocally. The only thing that I think might be holding people back is the fact that they can go back and watch video footage and so on.
Yeah,
Which makes it real.
it's not. It's a very surreal place. It almost doesn't seem. It does seem a bit not strange. I wouldn't want to label it as strange, but
Very peculiar. It's the only
peculiar.
place I could think of that does that, except for Argentina. But I think, I've never been. I think the Neapolitans probably take it to a weirder level. But I don't know. I think the cult of him is strong everywhere, and I think that's kind of part of the point. There's like appeal on different corners of to a couple different corners of the globe, But there's a real
isn't it? It's almost like a selling.
Almost like a what?
It's like a selling point.
It's become one. It's become a selling point in the last year, it feels like, in particular, with them winning the title, them having a good team. It's become a really sexy place to go visit. I remember it 10 years ago, and it was not the case. It was still charming, but it just wasn't as popular. That's all. It wasn't a bad place to visit. I think 30 years ago, it might have been a little tougher from what I understand, but I don't know how true that is. It's not rural Nigeria where you're going to get kidnapped by Boko Haram and held hostage. You might just get like a watch stolen. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, It's charming almost. You get your watch pickpocketed. All right, it's tip of the hat, salute. Okay, that's interesting. But yeah, I think I think it exists because in Naples they speak very melodramatically. It was they, the Neapolitans, who at the turn of the 20th century, when they had immigrated, when a large swath of them had immigrated to America, it was they who were into like the theater and stuff and writing songs. Very melodramatic. missing Naples. You know, mi spiezzo cuore, manco cuore, you know, and it's very, very, very dramatic. And now it's written in, you know, it's baked into the language almost. We don't have a hope. We don't have a hope. Southern Italy says that a lot. Senza speranza, senza speranza. And it's like they don't really have a whole lot going on. So I think the idea is with Maradona, they're just desperately clinging to a figure that they feel gives them hope, not because there isn't real socioeconomic hope, because it is more advanced than a lot of other parts of the world. It's just, it's almost like comfortable to say we got nothing here. We got nothing.
Not an excuse, but I
I don't know. Whatever. Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, anyone could go to school. You're a product of your environment to an extent, but it's possible to break free of that. There's a free, you know, educational system in Italy. It is possible, and a lot of people do. That's what we forget. Naples gets a bad rap, but there's like, what is it, 3, 4, 5 million people from the city of Naples, and like tons of important figures, tons of important politicians, and like magistrates and I don't know, judges. I mean, there are obviously judges in Naples that would be from Naples. That's a bad example. Politicians who go on to serve in you know, in parliament, and in the cabinet of the Italian government are from Naples. It's not, there's not a disproportionate lack of Neapolitans, I think, in you know, in Italian media and so on. There are things you could do. It's just there's a subculture of people there that like to say that it's a hellish place, and it's really not. It's a unique place.
Yeah, it's his own place. It's its own. It is still dislike any other Italian city that I could compare it to. If we're talking big city,
arguably, it's the South embodied.
Well, yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
but
it is its own. There is a feeling when you go to Naples that you don't really get, and it's a weird, unidentifiable, intangible thing.
It's an intangible essence in the air. It sounds so weird to say, but it's true. So I get it, but who knows what it is? Maybe it's the impending doom of being next to a volcano.
Yeah, maybe it is that.
I was thinking about that the other day. It makes no sense to me how that city just exists.
Well,
you know what I mean. But you know what? No, but you know what I mean. No. I don't mean it makes no sense to me that the volcano has not erupted. I'm saying it makes no sense to me that a city that large was erected at the foot of a volcano, and that it exists in the first, like that it was brought into existence in the first place. It's a horrible place to pick, you know, as it's a horrible plot of land to guarantee the safety of your family for generations. It's just not that. No, I don't know how it could have possibly ever happened. Because I don't know, man. Could it not have happened? Could it not have, you know, could it not have been 20 kilometers north up the coast? That's Naples. It's a port city in the south.
In hindsight, you know, in hindsight is a wonderful thing. I mean, maybe they didn't know it was. Maybe when settling in that particular point, maybe they didn't know that large hill, well, they thought was a hill, was going to erupt with magma. And
how did you even know what? Think about it. If people settled there like thousands of years ago, which they might have. I don't know when did Pompeii fall? Is it like pre-Roman? I'm gonna want to look this up. But for people who have been there as long as they did, they might just not. This is gonna sound so stupid. I'm gonna sound so brain dead saying this, but it's possible. Like, it's legitimately possible that they didn't know what volcanoes were.
Yeah,
maybe I'm not giving them credit, but how would you diffuse the information? You know, you know, nobody knew about Mount Fuji in Japan. They might have thought it was the only volcano out there. How would you have communication with Sicily? I guess like if it's all under the, you know, the umbrella of one kingdom, like if one empire had conquered, like, you know, the entire area of land from like Naples all the way down south to Calabria and into Sicily, then maybe in Sardinia, maybe then they kind of, you know, they understand the topography. Is topography the word? I don't know. They understand the entire, you know, they understand the land well because they've explored it, I guess. They want to know what we own. And maybe then they could, you know, they can communicate. Yeah, there are actually two of these motherfuckers in our, you know, in our kingdom. But what else would you think it is?
I'm glad you've brought that because I've never actually thought of the idiocy that, in hindsight, of settling in that place.
It says it was founded in the 7th or 8th century BC. Pompeii, specifically.
Oh, okay.
I mean, wow, which I'm looking at a picture of now. I mean, it's tough radio here. I know I'm not even showing you what I'm looking at. I'm just looking at their Wikipedia page. It's firmly in the, you know, in the I don't know, in the splash zone of the volcano. I'm looking at it here. It makes sense. Like, it makes sense how it would have got wiped out. They were close enough. It's just I don't know. It was probably just fertile and they stayed. They probably started planting tomatoes and were like, you know, this is nice. Apparently San Marzano tomatoes, which come from that one little area, can only exist. This might be total horseshit, but I could be misremembering this, but I believe they can only exist because of the geology of the ground, which is made possible because of the volcanic ash or the chemistry.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Whether it's true or not, because I think like some people grow that brand of tomatoes in like California, so whether that
sacrilege, yeah. Apparently, no. It's apparently no. You cannot do that. Apparently, the funny thing, one thing I love about Italy is that they'll take food so seriously to the point that they'll assign certain items, certain articles of food as having, I guess, cultural heritage significance, and as such, it needs to be approved and policed by the government.
Yeah,
like Parmigiano Reggiano, I think gets policed.
Yeah.
In short, basically, like I don't know what regulations they have to go through, but there are, like, it undergoes tests to make sure that it's indeed Parmigiano Reggiano.
Yeah, there's a little
use a kind of water or something. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. They got the seal.
Yeah.
Like from the judge's office or something, you know? Yeah. I don't know. What's the food product situation like in London if you want to cook all'italiana? How does it work there?
I mean, specifically here. Yeah, I mean, specifically here, you've got, in Bedford alone, I think it's one in every five people in Bedford. I think there's 170,000. I think one in every five is Italian, has some sort of Italian ancestry down that bloodline. So there's 3 or 4 shops just in Bedford specialize in Italian goods only. There's a big warehouse called Rocco's that everyone goes to, and he imports loads of stuff in big. I mean, a lot of it is out of date. You know, he's like, it's fine. Yeah, no, it's all right. Takes a couple of pounds off, but yeah, it's so easily importable here. Not as easy as it was pre-Brexit, but still fairly easy.
Sure, right. Oh shit! The guy just has a bunch of cans of beans and tomatoes that are like festering since like before 2016.
100,
Since before Brexit, when he heard about Brexit, the guy probably just imported a ton of stuff. How are they gonna take it all? And he started importing like special milk and like fior di latte in like 28, and you know, he was on back order. He was on back order for a couple of years. He was like, I don't care. Just give me everything you got. From 2016 to 2018, he was waiting for the apocalypse. He was just like a doomsday prepper, just storing all this food. Now it's like 5 years old, and he can't sell it at a quick enough rate. It's funny. Well, it's interesting because, you know, I'll be honest with you. I don't know a lot about the Italian community in London. I know it exists, but I don't know a lot about it. Could you kind of shed light on what it's like, in terms of how connected people are, when the immigration waves happened, how well people speak? Is there a London Italian accent, or is it not really? Is it not really a thing? Does the education system over there force everyone to kind of just pick up the standard, London British television anchor type accent? Are they good at weeding out the? Are they good at weeding out the wog? I hear about them, but I don't know a lot of people that actually are of that background. I know that comics who do like the crazy cringe Italian type shows will go there and sell out. I don't know why, how, who's going to watch. What's it like there? Just a whole breakdown. Just talk about life at large, everywhere, not just in Bedford.
Well, obviously, I know Bedford as what it is. I know more so than London. But the wave that my nonna came over was the 60s. Much like, and these were droves of Italian people who came and worked. There's a big brick factory outside of Bedford, and they all went and worked in a big brick factory making just the bricks that you'd build a house with. And then, as I said, that community has kind of festered and grown and become what it is now in Bedford. If you look at videos of when the European Championships happened, there's a big embankment, a big river, and there was tens of thousands Italians will go down there. I think a lot of Italians now are probably second, third generation, and a lot of. But I feel, and I'm not sure if it's because logistically and geographically they are closer than, I'm not sure how it is in Canada or America, what they're like over there.
Insufferable.
Yeah. But I feel like everyone's it's much of a muchness. It's not, I think you can spot them out of a crowd when they look more Mediterranean like yourself, not when you have genes like mine that are blonde hair, blue eyed. Sure. But yeah, it's really a case by case basis. But like I said, growing up in Bedford, it feels like you're in a kind of its own little world, where you go to school and so many of my friends are Italian, of Italian descent. One of my best friends, Christian, I'm not sure if you've seen him on TikTok. He's a Napoli fan, and because he always spoke at home. He sometimes, when he speaks English, is a bit illegible and it's a bit kind of hard to understand, and he says things like, things in English that's a direct translation of something in Italian. But I don't know. It's kind of. There's a few like, what did he said something the other day, and I was like, Christian, that doesn't make fucking sense. And then I remember, I was like, what was it? I think it was something stupid and menial. I think it was, he was having pasta for dinner, but he was having
nice,
like a pasta salad, like a cold pasta. And he just said, I was like, oh, what do you have for dinner? He was like, I'm having pasta cold. I was like, what?
I'm having my pasta cold.
No, as in I'm having, he called it pasta cold.
Okay.
Like,
yeah. There's some of that here too. I've never heard that I've never heard that specific type of freestyle. I've never heard that kind of linguistic freestyle here. But there are other types of linguistic freestyles that will occur regularly in my particular neighborhood. Montreal's one way, Toronto's another. The Eastern United States are kind of all very similar, I'd say. Toronto's like a pocket, Montreal's a pocket. Rest of North America, I think, is basically all like East Coast of the United States, and they all
does it differ?
Kind of sound a little. Respectively, those three differ. Yeah, but they all kind of will freestyle in their own way. in Montreal, I think they'll invert words a lot, kind of like that, but
Yeah.
not exactly like that. If that makes sense, they'll invert words differently. They'll say "me, I" a lot, which is like the most classic. That's like the fact that I pulled that out as the first example is you may not know this, but to anyone from here who's listening, I mean, it's almost hack. It's not even, that's not a scathing thing to say. Everyone knows that. Every idiot French Canadian people who barely speak English, can, if they're imitating Italians here, will know to say that. So I don't know why or how that comes to be. I guess it's, if you're speaking Italian, right? It's sente io non lo so io. I don't know. I guess it's kind of like that. Yeah. So interesting. Is it only in Bedford that you really have pockets of Italians, or do they kind of tend to be all over London? Because it sounds a lot like some of the enclaves that exist over here in North America, and people do leave the enclave, but the enclave is still the enclave. The people within it are still stuck there. Is there a football club there? Like, what club do people support in Bedford? The reason I was asking you where you're from in London before was because I wanted to gauge how far out you were, because I know that there's like they're like 10 football clubs, 10 pro clubs in London proper, but then you got like Watford, which is not in London, but it kind of is. You have Luton, which is not in London, but it kind of is, right? If a person, like, to the layman's ear, if you heard a person from Luton speaking English, you would think, oh, it's London.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, my local team would be, my local Premier League team would be Luton. Luton.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Bedford's a shithole. Bedford's a shithole.
I remember you tweeting about the stadium, and when you saw the walk into the stadium, you're like, "What the fuck?" But yeah,
me and everyone else.
Yeah, no, it's true. But no, Luton. Yeah, I won't talk about Luton too much.
Why? Why not? Why?
Luton's an interesting place. Plenty of character. It may be seen as
that's what I've heard.
Maybe seen as rough by some people, but I think if you go into Luton, you're always gonna a bit like Naples. You might get a watch stolen here and there, but
without the charm, without
the charm, with no charm.
Yeah.
But a lot of Italians around here actually support Chelsea because of the wave of Italian players that Chelsea had.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. That's and probably not much else. Now that I'm thinking about it, who else would they support? They're not going to support West Ham. Or it's actually funny that they would support Chelsea. Chelsea and West Ham, like the two East London clubs, are very. They're both in East London, right?
Chelsea's West London.
Chelsea's West London. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chelsea and Fulham. Yeah.
I thought the rivalry between them, I guess it's an East-West divide. I thought the rivalry between them was that they were both in East London and that they were both kind of like, in pockets of real Cockney, I don't know, just real Cockney working class blokes. I thought that's why they had a big rivalry, but it's more of an East-West divide. So is Chelsea more of an affluent club? West London's a little more affluent,
yes,
right?
very much so. Like, Chelsea is one of the most expensive areas in London. Chelsea and Fulham, both very, very, very affluent.
Okay, so this is actually interesting. I know you probably thought we talk a little bit more about Italian football, but most of the people that listen to this have a passing interest in football in particular. They know a lot about Italian football anyway. I'd rather talk about like the London club dynamics here, because this is fascinating to me. I've never actually dug into this with a person on the ground, I guess. Not because I haven't had an opportunity to, because I've never thought to. If you had to rank the clubs, if you had to rank the London-based clubs from biggest kip, just dog shit, fucking rough stadium. Jesus, calling it dog shit's a weird term. How about this? Give me a breakdown of every single London club that I could think of. Talk to me about who the fan is. I'm curious. Okay. Give me like a description, okay? AFC Wimbledon.
Wimbledon. God, I don't even know a Wimbledon fan. Although, a little nugget about Wimbledon is my closest local team, who I played for up until I was 16 or 17, MK Dons.
You played for
Were,
MK Dons?
yeah, until I was 16, I think, 16. Um, yeah, and we MK Dons were the team that after Wimbledon went into bankruptcy and
Right.
effectively died as a
Yeah.
club.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Tell
they
people the story for those who don't. Tell people the story for those who don't know, because
So
it's really
Wimbledon
interesting.
were a big club. They won the FA Cup in the 90s with a team called the Crazy Gang. And Vinnie Jones, who's now an actor, I guess, in inverted commas. Then they just
Nice.
went into financial ruin.
Sorry,
In the
I'm not sure about that.
Alexa. We went. They
What did
went
you
into
say? What did you say that prompted her? That prompted her
Sure.
to respond. What did you say that got her attention?
I don't know. She was enjoying my little nugget about Wimbledon, evidently.
You want to throw that thing in the toilet, bro? I don't know what you're doing with that thing. What are you doing? How old are you, bro? You're like 25 years old. What are you doing with an Alexa, bro? Everyone our age knows that shit's for that shit's for old retirees. You get it for your grandparents who don't need to know about the fact that it's listening to them taking a shit and taking their meds, and they're just happy. Oh my god, listen, this is cool. Yeah, it's funny. It's fun to get an Alexa for old people because they don't really understand it. They go to war with it, and it fascinates them at the
Yeah.
same time. It's impressive to them. That's who it's for. What are you doing?
Hey, I like to listen to my music in the morning. Anyway, yeah, sorry.
That's great. Like, oh no, I like it. It plays music. Anyway, that's fucking. Anyway, you wanker. Let's get back to talking about what I was talking about.
Where were we? Yeah. Anyway, Wimbledon went into financial ruin. They then rebranded as a club. Around Wimbledon to Milton Keynes is maybe an hour and a half drive away. Quite a significant amount of time away. New stadium.
I thought Milton Keynes was quite far out. That's why I was surprised to hear you say that you played for them. But I guess you'll do whatever you can if you're going to get into a good club setup.
No, so it's only 20 minutes. Only 20 minutes from me, Milton Keynes. So I'm kind of halfway between Luton and Milton Keynes, being in Bedford.
Okay, got it. So I understand. Well, the greater London metropolitan area is massive, right? So would you even be considered part of it technically? I mean, you'll obviously no, but I mean, if you were to go to Cairo, Egypt, and someone said, "Where are you from?" You'll just say London, obviously, right?
Yeah, to save time.
You could say close to Luton, to be honest, actually, or close to Milton Keynes, just because I think people are actually a little bit familiar with English geography because of football. But it's a segment, it's a cohort of people I think that are globally. Yeah, you got to say London. Okay, but technically you're not really part of the greater London area. Okay, so I always assumed you were. So that makes sense. Okay, so Milton Keynes is not that far from where you're from, and right, yeah. So
Wimbledon anyway.
Yeah.
Where they rebranded, and there was now, but then Wimbledon, the team in Wimbledon came back, and then now there's a big rivalry. They played each other in the FA Cup, I think 7 or 8 years ago. It was a whole big thing. But
it's crazy that they came back too, because they came back from the brink. I mean, they refounded and started afresh. I think they got promoted 6 times. I don't know. I don't know what level they re-entered the pyramid at, but it might have been the 10th. I could be wrong, but it might have been the 10th. Right?
It would have been about, yeah.
It was crazy, and I think they're both in the same division now. I think they're both in League Two. I actually saw the other day that they were both in the same division. I think at one point Wimbledon were actually above them. I think MK Dons might have been in the 4th tier, and I think Wimbledon might have been in League One. I could be wrong. I could be getting my dates confused, but they've really converged in ways that no one thought they could. Right. So the Wimbledon fan. What is Wimbledon London? We all know about Wimbledon, the tennis tournament. A Wimbledon fan. What is that? What do they look like? Where even is Wimbledon? Is it central London? Talk.
It's to the west. To the west. Again, quite parts of Wimbledon very, very affluent.
So posh.
Yeah, some parts of Wimbledon. I don't even know a Wimbledon fan, but I guess just kind of maybe a working man. I'm just going to assume a working man.
Okay, to be fair, that was a crazy first one for me to ask you about. All right, let's go. Let's name the London clubs. Identify them. Wimbledon. Like, crazy. It's a I think I just wanted to throw you a curveball. I just wanted to seem a little.
Curveball, to be fair.
I came with a deep cut right away. Okay, so the Arsenal fan, the typical Arsenal fan, are they a little more mainstream? Do you have pockets of Arsenal fans all throughout the city, or is it really just a North London club within the context of London itself?
Arsenal fans are everywhere, because they're such a huge club, and they have
a lot of twats.
Yeah, everywhere.
tons of
and
twats who are Arsenal fans.
And because obviously they were just so good for such a long period of time in the early noughties, they became a team that a lot of people kind of just fell in love with. Omri, Pires, Lundberg,
Bergkamp.
Wenger was such a fashionable manager. I think Arsenal. I always connote Arsenal with being quite a fashionable and stylish club. They're very modern in the things they do, in the kits they create, in the way they engage with their fans.
Very Caribbean, a lot of black Africans, black people from the West Indies who like them, right? Arsenal, a lot of roadmen, Nigerians, Ghanaians, fucking I don't know, Jamaicans, Trinis, guys from St. Kitts. They're very Arsenal, right?
Yeah, they're very. I would say Arsenal are a very multicultural club, more so than any of the other London clubs. I would say.
Okay, Pakistani cohorts of citizens of London. Who are they going for normally? Do they not have any Do they not have any ties? Is it like most other parts of the city where it just might depend where they're from, or were there any? Is there a trend?
I think sometimes it depends where you grow up. I mean. Both of my Pakistani friends both support Manchester United. So
okay, so that's, but that's just because they're a large club. Okay, so is there an area? Is there a pocket of London in particular that is very Pakistani, or Indian? I don't know if they're mixed because they're from, geographically they're from close parts of the world, or if they're in different pockets of the city, or are they just kind of spread all throughout because of the long-standing historical ties between the countries and the movement of people between the two?
Yeah, I think you can travel to anywhere in London, and the communities of both Pakistanis and Indians is there's loads.
So they weren't it's not like they were in North London and they pulled for one club. So So Arsenal's multicultural because they're kind of because London's multicultural and they broadly appeal to the masses of London. So you get a little bit of everything.
Yes.
And South London has to be Crystal Palace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're a true Southern Cockney lad from Croydon, it's like Roy Hodgson was a Palace man. He's from Croydon, right? He's like the typical Palace fan.
It's
right?
It's a locals club.
Okay. What do they look like? I don't know. Nigel Farage fans mostly.
No. To be fair, I think Crystal Palace. I think if you're going more the Farage route, you're looking at more probably. Again, without trying to tarnish a club with one brush, you're looking at a West Ham, which is more of a typically, you're looking at your, Green Street-esque kind of.
Yeah.
Without Charlie Hunnam's, terrible accent in that film, that kind of thing.
Fuck. Okay, and so Croydon's more. So Croydon and Crystal Palace are probably a little more working class, labor guys, maybe, or.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you're giving. You could tell me anything, by the way, and I'll believe you. There might be people listening to this in Britain right now that are just, who is this fucking wanker? You could be spewing nonsense to me.
Waiting for your English impression. I've been waiting for that today, by the way.
Oh, were you? Well, no, I wasn't going to come out too soon, too hot, and lay it on you right away. That would have been a little, too easy to telegraph.
I feel, Crystal Palace. I feel like they're very. They don't trouble anyone either. They're very it's always you feel safe at Crystal Palace. It's also the same stadium where they filmed Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso was based loosely on Crystal Palace.
It felt that way, yeah. Well, Richmond is a real neighborhood, right? In London.
Yes, it's a lovely, lovely neighborhood, in fact. Really nice.
Right. It looked nice. It looked nice in Ted Lasso. But yeah, the colors obviously very clearly, a small, mediocre type club. Size of the stadium, it felt like it had to have been Crystal Palace. Okay, and then West Ham, we kind of already got into a little bit. What about Charlton? Some of these random ass clubs.
That is so left field. I think, like I said, apart from the kind of stereotypes that Arsenal fans, West Ham fans in particular carry. Fulham fans again hold a bit of like are supposed to be quite snooty because of the area,
Yeah,
well off, rich old white
sure.
guys.
Craven Cottage. Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
sounds. It oozes. It
Lovely,
oozes.
lovely little stadium though.
Cunt.
Lovely little stadium. Yeah.
So I've heard. Yeah, very old. Yeah.
Italy have
Yeah.
played there a few times. Actually, I've seen them twice
They
there.
did. Yeah, I think they played. Was it Brazil or Nigeria there once?
Yeah, no. So
Like in the
Italy
last
played.
10 years.
They played Brazil at the Emirates. Then they played Ivory Coast at Upton Park, the old West Ham stadium. That was Balotelli's first game for
Oh my
Italy.
God.
Watch that. Then we played Nigeria and the Republic of Ireland at Craven Cottage.
That feels a little more on brand. Yeah, Brazil at Craven Cottage feels like a big waste.
Yeah.
Just a big wasted opportunity, to sell some tickets. Interesting. Yeah, my father, funnily enough, wants to go to watch Fulham really badly because he has one
Really?
business associate in London who's a Fulham fan and who's yeah, I don't know, who sung the praises of the stadium and so on. And my dad sold on it. But
It is
anyway.
lovely. Like it's certainly an experience. It's one of the few English stadiums that has like that charm, that element of without being so like ultra modern and kind of
Yeah. What you want from an old an old proper English football ground. It feels like that's the vibe I got. I think are there not beams that support the roof at Craven Cottage?
Yeah.
Or am I dreaming? Oh, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
so
That's a thing of
you
beauty.
get a shit seat. Like there's always a chance you get behind that.
That's beautiful.
You can't see shit.
It's glorious. Yeah. You can't do anything about it. It's just there
No.
for the structural integrity of the whole building. That's funny. The Millwall's near West Ham, right? So very similar type of.
That's the famous or the infamous London rivalry that's been very bloody in the past.
Talked about a lot in the book. So in among the thugs, and then QPR are just a neighborhood club.
Quite unproblematic again. I've never Loftus Road again. Loftus Road's actually a lovely stadium as well. If you ever get the chance,
Newer, right?
Newer than Craven Cottage, but still like you're basically on the pitch. It's so so tight.
Okay. I can't remember what it looks like. I haven't seen one of their matches in a while. They've been kind of off the grid, off in the in the jungle of the championship for a little while, I think. And then I guess the last one. So how many Jews support Spurs? Is that like a stupid stereotype? Is it because Daniel Levy is Jewish, or is it because of where they were located and were there a lot of Jewish people historically in North London? I'm thinking back to Peaky Blinders and Alfie Solomons. I felt like he was in Camden Town, Camden, London. Where is that? South London, right?
Camden's north. It's not far from Arsenal, actually.
Okay, I thought Camden was along the water, so I thought it was. Actually, I don't know why I thought that.
There is a little
London
river that runs
along the water.
There is a little river that runs through Camden, though. So that might be why.
Okay, well that might be it. But London's not a coastal city. I don't know why I thought, south along the water. It's because London is south, and I'm thinking south of London is the ocean. It's stupid. So okay, so are there actually a ton of Jews that support Spurs? If you're a Jewish person that still lives in London, are they your kind of de facto club?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I know the area itself near the old White Hart Lane, which is right next to the new Tottenham Stadium. There is like a massive Hasidic Jew community. Like you drive through and it's everyone dressed up with the I don't know all the exact
keep us the little hats, the disc, the yarmulke. You're talking about the big hat probably, or maybe you're not. Maybe you're talking about the
guy,
the yarmulke with the with the I call them Jew curls. I don't know. I think they call them the curls. I don't know. There's probably a word in Yiddish or Hebrew which I'm not familiar with. But yeah, those guys fire me up. Anytime you see you ever see like the videos of like a room full of those guys just like turning up like with like a DJ playing and a bunch of them are jumping around with the curls bouncing. It's so funny. It's so electric, dude. Yeah, you don't see many of those guys at football stadiums. I haven't anyway. I haven't seen many videos of them, which has led me to wonder how true the statement is. But again, a lot of Jews are just secular and aren't super orthodox or devout, and they just they kind of are just integrated into society as regular looking civilians, and they don't stand out. So I don't really know. Obviously, it's a weird thing to do, is to say, if you're of this background, who do you support? I mean, typically, historically, and what the largest swaths of them will tend to do. So culturally, what does that make of Tottenham then? Is it a North London is confusing to me. I know nothing about them. I feel like they could be really rich and affluent, but I've also heard that a bunch of like wicked Skengmen come from like North London. So I have no clue, which is a great word. One of my favorite words. Wicked Skengman. I know.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about North London.
I think London, like especially now, is just so like extremely diverse. Like especially North London, that clubs have. I mean, I would say Arsenal is still like, when you go to Arsenal culturally, like you will see everyone. You will see people from Asia. You will see people from the Caribbean, Africa, white, European. Like they are very much like a people's club, more so than the others. I would say like that's just what I see.
Like Manchester United, probably.
Yeah, because of their probably because of their global reach.
Yeah,
and especially Arsenal in the late 90s, early noughties had like such a massive like African influence on their team, which I think is now kind of reflected in their fan base.
Who do they have that was African?
Well, of African French descent.
Oh, okay, yeah, Vieira.
Or Caribbean, for that matter. So you would have
right. Yeah, Ian Wright was. I think he's Caribbean. Yeah. Okay. No, fair. So, okay. Thank you for that lesson. Thank you for the breakdown. I'm glad we did it this way instead of me saying, "All right, rank them from shit." Maybe here, if you had to rank just from most shit to least shit in terms of experience. And by the way, shit can be good. Like if you say this club is the most shit, that might make me want to go to them the most. I went to Bohemian match in Dublin with my dad a few months ago, and it's beautiful. The stadium was an absolute dump. It just a garbage stadium. And they're rebuilding it, and I'm a little disappointed about it because I like the way that it looked. I mean, I'm glad I got to experience it before I got torn down. But it's one stadium. One bathroom, 3 pubs, one stand.
But it had charm.
Tons of charm. There were 2 ends, obviously, right? One end had a stand, one end did not. The stand on one end was very low to the ground, very small stand. The other side, which had no stand, the other end, which had no stand, was at the foot of like a hill. Made no sense. It was crazy. It was absolutely bonkers. It looked like sitting in the grandstand, also held up by beams, by the way, which is a good sign. One of the oldest stadiums, I think, it has to be one of the older stadiums in Europe. I think it was actually built in the 1800s. I could be getting that wrong, but it's super old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I could be totally pulling that out of my ass, but it's very old. Look to your left, Dublin, urban looking club, local apartment buildings and houses behind it, standard. Look to your right, looks like the East Midlands. Just a hill, greenery, made no sense. So that's cool, is the point.
Yeah.
So shit's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, the biggest dump of an experience, going to the stadium, just most working class, least affluent fans to most that you could think of. There's a lot of clubs that are kind of in the greater area, which we won't probably remember. But
yeah, I can do the main ones, and I'll do it on like personal experience.
Yeah. Please.
And my kind of however I've ranked them, they may be on different criteria. But I'd start with the worst, and it's the West Ham Stadium, the new West Ham Stadium, which I just hate.
I thought it was okay. So you're gonna throw a lot of people off right off the bat because because it's a brand new stadium and a lot of people say it's beautiful. I've also heard people say that it's a horrible experience. I'm a little confused by that.
It's soulless.
For you, soulless. Okay. You see, but now we're kind of missing the point though, because old and shitty does have soul in terms of shittiest stadium. And anyway, listen, you know what? I'm not going to interrupt you any further. Go off, do your thing. List it off, rattle it off, do it according to your own criteria. It's fine. I think you are going to throw some people off with the London Stadium shout because it's like fucking brand new. When they were at Upton Park, would you have still said that they were at the bottom of the barrel because it was a dump of a stadium and because the fans are the most... Oh, okay.
That would have been near my top because I thought Upton Park was absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
I just think it's like I said, there is no really real criteria. I'm just going off what I've experienced. And yes, one of my experiences was when Juventus played there in a preseason friendly and it was dead. And Higuain was about 30 kilos overweight in that particular game. Do you remember where he was wearing the zebra kit and he you could see his belly? It was that game.
Yeah. And was that the year we sold him? The year before we sold him, maybe?
Yes.
Or loaned him, maybe.
Loaned him, I think, to Chelsea later on that, or Milan later on that year.
Yeah. Okay, anyway. So not a great viewing experience, but sure, might have tainted it slightly.
Then I would actually...
The trauma of seeing Higuain's beer belly was like, fuck this ground, fuck this club, I'm never coming back here. Okay. West Ham.
I would actually go Arsenal next. And it's a lovely stadium. Beautiful stadium. Again, every time I've been there 6, 7, 8 times. It's just the atmosphere is flat. I think I am gauging a lot of this from atmosphere because it's a big thing for me going to European stadiums and having your ears hurt when you leave because the ultras are so fucking loud for 90 minutes.
So let's change this. Let's change the criteria from least soulful to most soulful.
Yeah. That's
because I'm bringing in socioeconomics and the stadium itself. So Craven Cottage is a dump of a stadium, but it's beautiful and the people are rich. So it's too many variables. Soul. So we're going off the soul here. Sorry.
I'm going off the soul. Yeah, we'll use that word. Okay. Yeah. Arsenal. Then probably just above it, I would put the Tottenham Stadium. But I've only been to once. And that was a Champions League game. But for a Champions League was it the quarterfinal last 16 against Milan last year? I think it was a last 16 game.
I don't remember.
But a game they needed to win because Milan were 1-0 up from the first leg. For a last 16 Champions League game in which you needed to win, I thought that the stadium was... It was... I was like, what? I was like, really? I was like,
There's no ultras anywhere in English football, right? That's just not a thing.
Nothing.
You have hooligans.
You have hooligans, but
they're not ultras.
They don't sing for 90 minutes. They don't.
No.
They don't.
No, because singing is gay.
Well,
that's what they right. Oh, I'm not some. I'm not gonna sing. Well, what's the matter with you? I'm a proper bloke. I'm not gonna sing. I'm gonna stab him, and that's it. I want to watch the football. I'm not gay. There you go. The Italians are like, we just have the opera, just generations of Nessun dorme. This fucking, Pari, vaffanculo, pari, vaffanculo. Siamo Milani. It's just they got it in somewhere in the back of their, it's been the seed has been watered over generations. Like theater kids, they've been told it's okay to let it out. So it makes sense.
But yeah, again, I felt that was disappointing. The stadium, however, in terms of the infrastructure, and that is the best stadium without a doubt that I've ever been to. It was
so in terms
as a stadium.
Sorry, it's a stadium.
Yeah, no,
go on.
It was just again for a Champions League quarterfinal, which was last 16. Sorry, that was completely packed out. I managed to walk into the stadium and get to my seat within about 20 seconds. And I was right at the top tier. It's just so well designed. Inside, it's incredible. The food they've got inside is outstanding. It's just, it really is something. Every seat is the bollocks.
They built it for Tottenham as opposed to it's the new White Hart Lane. I mean, hang on. No, wait. It's the new, they call it the new Tottenham Stadium, right?
Yeah.
It's not called White Hart Lane anymore.
No.
But it's built on the site of where White Hart Lane was, hence why Tottenham played
next to that. Yeah.
Okay, but it's the same, but it's on the same street, same hood, same
area.
Postal code.
Phones.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
So sorry, I just hit the mic. Yeah, so they kind of built it, su misura for the team. It was like a sartorial build. Whereas West Ham just moved into a stadium, right?
Yes.
Which was built for another purpose, right? For the Olympics. And do they rent it now, or did they buy it out, or?
I think they bought it. I think they own it now.
In any case, they didn't build it, right? It wasn't built for the modern football fan. It was just, let's build this piece of infrastructure for this event. Was it built for the London Olympics?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Okay. And then I think maybe West Ham had the intention of taking it over at some point. Anyway, whatever. I guess it's not that big of a deal to build a stadium that large in London because there's just so much sporting infrastructure is necessary there to support all the different clubs and such, even just rugby. It was going to get used for something, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that makes sense. I mean, just the huge cricket ground there, right? Twickenham is massive. There are just so many large stadiums in open air stadiums in London. So I guess it wasn't that big of a deal when they made it. But again, but West Ham didn't, have any say in the process, I guess, right? Or if they did, it wasn't to the same extent that Tottenham built their own thing according to their own taste. So of the new stadiums, if we're going to consider the Emirates to be a new stadium built in the last 15, 20 years, Tottenham, best experience.
In terms of the stadium itself, yeah, 100%.
Despite the fact that it being an important Champions League game, whatever it was, round of 16, quarterfinal match, whatever the case might have been. I remember you vlogged it. I think it was around of 16. It was still a little tame. So still not the same as what we'll see later down this list, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
It was just a bit. Yeah, I was just a bit disappointed. I wasn't disappointed with the stadium. I was disappointed with the fans and the atmosphere.
So take us home then. Who ranks toward the top then of the last couple of clubs?
I've had good experiences at Chelsea. Again, it's a bit more of an old school stadium.
Stamford Bridge is less new, right? So that makes sense.
Less new, yeah. And it's just a bit more. You just feel a bit more when you're in it. Even I remember I went to see a pre-season friendly. It was Chelsea versus Fiorentina, and Rossi was playing up front before his knees crumbled.
As they were crumbling in a brief flash of time when he could run in a straight line.
But even that
or cut running in the I've heard running in the straight line is not the problem. You know this because you tore your ACL, right? Producer Dilo, who's not here, I'm running solo without him here, but normally he supervises these. But he tore his ACL recently too. He can't. I don't know if you listen to the pod or not. Either way, he cannot cut. That's the thing now. Is he? Yeah. He can
run in straight lines. That's
you can play as a fullback. Just fucking Spinazzola just in the channel, Yeah.
But anyway, even despite that being a preseason friendly, I thought the atmosphere was great, and the other few Premier League games I've seen there have always been the fans are loud, the atmosphere is fairly good, and then lastly Craven Cottage. Craven Cottage, I would say, and it feels a bit of a cheat to say Craven Cottage because I can't necessarily say the atmosphere was better than it was at Chelsea.
Yeah, but we're going off of soul here. We're going off of soul.
And I think the difference is with Craven Cottage is the ground itself, the stadium itself, emits that soul. Without even having any fans in there, you walk up to your seat and you're walking up these little wooden stairs that have been there for fucking like hundreds of years or however long they've been there, and you look around and everything's so old and it has a bit of a smell as well. It's just that old kind of smell. And I think that contributes to it. It doesn't
smell like cleaning products, Yeah.
No.
Doesn't smell sterile. Might be a little dirty. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, that's the thing is a club like Fulham can kind of afford that. They They don't need to.
No.
One day they might say, you know what? We're listening. What will inevitably happen is someone will say, we're missing. Look at how much money we're missing out on. And that will probably, that will probably lead to the erection of a new stadium and erecting, whatever. the building of a new stadium. And they're going to be like, well, what do we do with this old one? Naturally, we're not going to buy a plot of land. We have a plot of land. We'll knock this one down. That'll probably be what happens. But we really should, based on what you're saying, we should, as long as the place is structurally intact, we need to kind of just say, Fulham, we're making an example of you. Clubs like that need to just stay like that forever. The problem is, it's kind of like the American dream and the lie of the American dream now, where everyone thinks that they can make money in America. Or if you post something on TikTok, you might just become famous. And we need to acknowledge that there are some people that just know your level, know your place. You're a sacrificial lamb. The world needs guys to dig the fucking ditches. You don't all have to be famous, you don't all have you can't all be rich, just you have some clubs that need to be there for us as fans. We don't support the club, so we don't actually want what's best for them, but we selfishly want you guys to still have this old ground because it feels comforting and it feels familiar.
That's exactly it. One of the only stadiums in England as well that I get that charm from. Maybe because it's old. Maybe it's as simple as that.
Have you been to Luton?
Yeah, Kenilworth Road. I think I played on the pitch when I was younger, I'm pretty sure.
Is it that looks like a really cool pitch, but what's interesting about Craven Cottage is, the Luton Stadium looks like a very cool stadium, not the pitch specifically, the ground, the ground, the stadium. Yeah. The thing with Fulham is what it comes across as to me is it's old and has charm, but it's a little bit more fresh. I feel like what you have in Luton is just kind of decrepit a little bit. I don't know if that's really true, but
yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair comment.
I've never been. I just looking at it, it looks just more small time.
Yeah, it always has been. I mean, that stadium's. I mean, my dad would used to go down there when he was younger. There was a famous match in 70 something when Luton played Millwall, and the game had to be abandoned halfway through because the fans were just beating the shit out of each other. Millwall fans ran on the pitch, Luton fans ran on the pitch, and my dad was at that game. He said it was fucking terrifying.
Yeah. It doesn't sound surprising. Again, you should read the book and ask your father if he can attest to any of the shit that is written about. It sounded like it was a whole other world back then, where people would just go to the stadium specifically to fight. And fair play to your dad. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know if he looked like you or not, but was he born in London or born? Sorry, was he born in England?
Yeah, so he looks like Ravanelli. He's just like
just beautiful
gray,
man.
short grey hair, just the most Italian looking man. He's like spitting image of Ravanelli.
I think I've seen him once actually in a post or something. He
oh yes, I might.
Yeah. He kind of does a little. Yeah. Now that I'm hearing you say so. Well, where's your mom from? Is she Italian or is she from elsewhere?
She's a Scot.
Okay.
So I don't actually have, well, culturally or however you want to put it, any English blood.
Do you look like other than just being born there, right? That's the weird thing about people in England is you have people that will move down that are Irish, and it's a weird thing that they probably have to reconcile, Ultimately, if England calls, Grealish and Declan Rice, and they all wind up playing for England, they all fucking sound English. But yeah, I feel like there are some people that probably have that weird, cold aloofness toward the English, even though they live there, because it's like, oh, well, I'm not really English, I'm Welsh. I'm just here, for work type of thing. But okay, so do you look a little more like your mom?
Yeah, so I've got my mum's obviously
lighter features,
Gaelic features. My sister's like the most, again, like she looks like she's from a fucking like Neapolitan film from the 60s. She's got like black eyebrows, long black curly hair, and
so back in the day, your dad was a darker guy?
Features. Oh yeah, dad, yeah, very very dark. Yeah.
So would he ever get shit in stadiums?
Yeah. So he got
Because
he was telling
he looked like a WAP, and they hated the WAPs,
Yeah.
and they would say we want to kill the WAPs. Because we're going back now, like the start of the pub. We were talking about what shit used to be like decades ago. We're going back to then, right? 70s, 80s.
Yeah, especially I mean at school it was worse. Like when he was a teenager, and then he was telling me actually as we were going to the Italy-England game last week, he was telling me when I can't remember when it was, maybe Italy played England in the 80s or something. He got pissed, like glasses of piss thrown at him from like above,
Nice.
from above stands. Yeah, but yeah, he got his fair share of shit when he was younger.
And what does he
He
make?
does. He sticks out.
Does he have a chip on his shoulder now, or is he like, yeah, it's just how it was?
Oh yeah, 100% he does. Yeah,
He has a chip on his shoulder.
100%.
A little bit, yeah. So does he not trust a lot of the Cockney guys? Then I don't know if it's considered Cockney where you are. Is Cockney just South England?
No, to be fair, it only tends to that chip only tends to manifest itself in sporting events. Actually,
at the football, because that's where it comes out, right? With the
because
crowd.
that's where that tribal instinct, only ever comes to the forefront.
Yeah. Well, it's the it's the dangerous kind of collective mind of the crowd, or what's the term? Like a group of people that might riot. What would you call that? Not a crowd, but
like a mob.
The mob. Thank you. Yes, exactly. The mob moves with a mind of its own. It's a really fucking fascinating book. It's like it's really descriptive, which is interesting. The guy who wrote it was fully immersed. He was not kind of writing about it from an outside lens, watching in the stadiums in comfortable seats, looking at it from afar. He was in it. He was in the mob. He feels the mob running. The guys ahead of him are running, and he has to run because if not, the guys behind him will, knock him over and trample him. And you understand, by the way, why people died in Brussels at Heysel. It's when you read the book, it's just the idea that the mob has a mind of its own, and when the mob, people at the front are just commanding soldiers, and they're full of testosterone and adrenaline, and they're just full of piss and vinegar and anger. They're like, we're gonna go kill these guys, and all it takes is just a few guys to start moving, and then there's like a momentum that sweeps you into it, and before you know it, you're kind of you're running at another crowd of men who have knives or just their fists, but you're stuck. You cannot go back. There are people next to you, glued to you. It's like an army, but with less organization and just a mind of its own. So you could see how crazy shit might have happened to him, and then it's like a few days later they see him at those same people would see him at the bakery and go, you're right, you're right, like.
You're right, mate. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
But he, like I said, it's weird. Like you said, it just manifests itself in sports to the extent where, like, I don't know, like on Sky Sports occasionally, like England's under-18 women's team will be playing against, like, I don't know, Sweden or something. But like, fucking come on, Sweden, or whatever he's saying. Like, it'll be like that.
That's funny.
But stupid shit.
I'm glad we were able to do this despite the Zoom call and the lag and everything. I know a couple times I kind of tripped over each other, but I thought this was good overall. I appreciate you coming on, man. This was a fun little hang. Thank you for the education.
I really enjoyed it.
In your part of the world, your neck of the woods. Do you have any interest in coming to North America, or could it not interest you less?
I'd love to. No, I'd love to one day. No, I haven't. I've always said that. I think Canada probably is. I would like to go to Canada more than I'd like to go to America.
Why is
that?
I
go to Toronto. I don't know.
Toronto sucks. Toronto sucks. It's not interesting. It's not worth visiting. If you went to Toronto,
but I want to hear people with that accent. I want to hear the accent that's been derived from our London brothers The
Fuck.
Toronto man's accent. I'm trying to hear that. I want to hear that in like real life.
You do you? I mean, Godspeed if that's what you want to do. If that's what, I don't understand what happened to Toronto. It changed a lot in the last 10 years culturally. I think I feel like there have always been the same pockets of immigrants that might have spoken a certain way, but I think they kind of did it quietly and then it got cool. So people that don't come from that background started talking that way too, and now it makes no sense to
It's unbelievable. It's incredible.
I guess it's kind of London's a good comparison in hindsight. Caribbeans in the I don't know, in the city have kind of infiltrate, or their mannerisms have kind of like infiltrated the collective psyche. And then you'll have people that work in banking. The epicenter of Canadian banking is in Toronto, much like it is in London, and those people will sound nothing like the bankers, right? Be it in London. Yeah. Well, what street are they on?
There's Canary Wharf. That's where a lot of the banks are.
Anyway, whatever. The guys who work on Bay Street in Toronto and the guys who work in the banking district of London sound like rich cunts, and that's kind of not changed. It's not people that are going on to represent folks in Parliament who sound like that, but it is an accent on the street sometimes. But you'll go hear it and be like, all right, now what? I'm gonna go have Caribbean food. I have better Caribbean food 15 minutes from my place, probably. In your case, I would assume. I don't know.
So where would I go then? If you were taking me like to a place or saying go here, where would that be?
Where specifically? North America is huge. We can talk more about this off pod if you want. We could talk more about this off pod if you want recommendations. But in Canada specifically, Jesus. To be very honest with you, I'd say if you want a really cool cultural experience, it might make most sense to go out west to Alberta, where the Rocky Mountains are, Banff National Park, which you might have seen pictures of, Whistler, British Columbia, near Vancouver Island, because that would be very different to anything that you have. Montreal is a very cool city, but it feels like a European city, which is nice. You would like it, but it's not that unfamiliar. If you want to see the most unfamiliar thing in the United States, you wouldn't go to New York City. You've been to London. You would go to Arizona, or you would go to the desert, near where they filmed Breaking Bad. Walter, you'd go to Texas. You'd go deep in the heart of Texas. But you're going to get a very different, authentic experience. That's a little authentic. I mean, New York is authentically New York, but it's not it's not uniquely American.
Yeah, it's not dissimilar to
in the way. Yeah, it's not uniquely American in the way that the heart of Texas or Dallas, Texas, is uniquely American. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But if you had to come anywhere, Montreal and Toronto are both worth seeing. If you're going to go to Toronto, you would have to see Montreal as well. I'm not saying that because I'm from here. There's a lot of things about the city that that drive me crazy. But objectively, it is an interesting place to visit. It's a cool vibe. I would do Montreal, Toronto, New York, maybe Boston, Philadelphia. You could do like the Northeast, probably. That's a good tour. But if you wanted the most unique vibe, Alberta, Banff, West Coast, and maybe like the far East Coast, like the Canadian Maritimes, which will be a little bit more similar to, I don't know, like an Irish coastal town.
Oh, okay.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
Canada's huge. It's a very large country. That's kind of the issue with Europeans coming to America. Like, I'm in America, I'm going to see everything. It's like, no, you won't. You won't, and you can't. If you live here for a year and travel all around the country for a year and don't work, you could do it, but it's difficult. I've not seen most of America. I've been to a few cities, It's about it. Anyway, you're if we're ever to meet in person, it'll more than likely be because I come to London before you come here, I would assume. But if you're gonna make the transatlantic trip, you go to New York. Go to New York before you come to before you go to Toronto, bro. I don't know. That's what I would say. But again, I can't say I blame you, because I can people outside of the UK consume content from there and say, I want to hear people speak like that in real life. And you might hear that and say, why?
Yeah. No, I honestly, sometimes I get in like a TikTok like rabbit hole of like Toronto man's accents, and I'm just like, it can be like 20 minutes, and I'm just like so fascinated by the way these people.
You're in too deep. All right,
it's too far gone.
Godspeed. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. Where can people follow you?
TikTok is the main place if you like short form content about Italian football. It's very palatable and unbiased, I guess. Twitter, YouTube, Instagram on occasionally. But yeah.
It's all at AzzurriTV, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Listeners, if you're new, again, just subscribe. If you enjoyed the pod, if you made it this far, I'm Sam Adamo everywhere. You can get podcasts. If you're listening to this, then I'm in New York. So content's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. That'll be, recorded over here, either alone or with people. Still not really sure how it'll pan out. I wanted to get this in the can before heading out. But if you're listening to this, I'm currently in New York and we'll be doing a lot of exciting shit in the next month and a half. So be on the lookout. And until then, listeners, appreciate you tuning in. Alla prossima. Ciao. Where's the recording? How do I end the recording? God, I'm stupid. Oh, there we go.